when you're considering AI, when you're considering automation, make sure to preserve the most important aspects of the outcome and don't compromise in those things. In the AI economy, we're seeing an abundance of what we call AI slop, people who compromise in quality for speed and efficiency. And that's going to compromise your brand. It's going to compromise your perceived expertise. And so we cannot do that.
Welcome to Brand on the Rocks, the podcast that distills bold ideas into clear messages you can actually use. Each week, we serve up conversations, audits, and straight pours of insight to help you cut through the noise and grow your business. Hosted by brand strategist Ryan Holck, this is where clarity comes neat and your brand gets remembered. Well, Chad, welcome to Brand on the Rocks podcast. It is great to have you today.
Thanks. I'm stoked to be here. It's going to be a great time.
I would agree. I know we connected really a couple times in the last 6 months to a year, but maybe our listeners don't exactly know who you are. So tell us a little about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, my name is Chad. I have a marketing and AI agency. Our focus and goal is to really help businesses grow. A lot of times that involves some systemization and getting operations set up. Other times it's about messaging, not really about messaging, but more taking their message and getting it out to the right people. Because if you don't tell people what you do, you can't help them do it.
Right. Amplifying that message is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you had a post recently that caught me. I started following you initially because of some of the AI stuff you're doing. Went to your event. In fact, I was using some of your prompts today and yesterday. Just got to say, one of them specifically, I know based on past experience, it saved me somewhere between 6 and 8 hours just yesterday
Wow.
in client work, which I was like, oh, that was done in 3 hours. That was not a day and a half. That was absolutely amazing. And it was, I actually had a plan that would take me for the client into 2027, not just through this year. I was like, oh, this. Anyways, thank you, because I know that's one of your core strengths here, and I'm sure we'll talk a little about that. But you had a LinkedIn post this week that struck me, talking about drowning in productivity. Tell me a little bit about the background of that and what that means or how you see that playing out for businesses.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, whether you've taken the productivity course or read the book, and what is that book? Well, it could have been Getting Things Done. That's a popular one. It could have been, goodness gracious, now I'm forgetting his name, Michael Hyatt. Those are two of the biggest culprits that we see. There's really almost, probably 10 or 20 of these productivity books that we've all read. And what ends up happening is we read one, like, oh, the next one's going to be just as helpful. So we end up reading all of them. And then we end up taking the course. And then we go to the speaker. Then you have Brendan Burchard's events. And you're like, oh man, what's next? What are we going to do? The productivity hack that's going to buy back my time and get all my stress knocked down. And then we end up signing up for Todoist. And then we end up having to try and get organized and move things from one system to the next system. Ultimately, for me, it ended up being this like 8-year journey of just being inundated with every single piece of productivity literature that was out there. And finding that at the end of the day, what ended up actually happening was a sticky note on my desk, sometimes 10 or 15 of them, or a whiteboard where I had to end up writing. I had all the softwares. I owned all of them. And yet still, I was still going back to my old habits of that sticky note, which I actually have been sticky note free now for probably 6 months.
Wow.
And I just found one a week or two ago, probably when I started thinking about that post. And I was like, wow, this is a year-old sticky note. And I'm so glad I'm no longer doing that anymore. And because we drown, we get so excited to go swim in the deep end of this stuff. And then we forget where land is. And we just ultimately end up resetting. And then that's how we get into the next productivity one, because we don't have a system. We don't use a system. And now there's a life raft and it's named Jordan Rayner's Yellow Book or something, So it just depends. And I can continue name dropping books because we've read a lot of them and they're all great. But the reality is we just have to pick something that works for us and then move forward towards using it and sticking to it and getting better at using it every single day.
I love it. And as someone who I don't have any at this moment, but has historically had sticky notes all over my screen until the sticky doesn't stick and they're just laying on the desk.
Right.
I so So get that. So you do a lot of client work on the marketing automation side. How does that tie into that idea of productivity and helping them figure out what tools are best?
Yeah. So the reality is that a lot of clients have multiple systems. We have, and this is kind of where my post was back, when I was previously employed, we had a CRM. And I remember when we got that CRM, we thought it was going to be everything for us, but it was a CRM based tool, so it was really designed to do that one thing really well. We found out it didn't do a lot else really well. So, we need another tool. What tool are we going to use? Well, I had already divorced Todoist, so I couldn't do that. That was not on the table. And then I was like, well, what other tools? Do we go to Monday? Do we go to Trello? Do we go to Asana? All these different things. And ultimately, we did that for a time. We used these other systems and just got overwhelming. And so when I'm talking to my clients, I don't mind if they use multiple platforms, but one of the things that we're regularly just kind of pushing back on is if they're actually using the platform. And that's where, when it comes to our work, we kind of have two things. One, a large amount of our work is helping consults with businesses and building these systems. The amount of businesses that we've actually gotten set up on the company we use called ClickUp is fairly alarming. It's a large amount of companies because it's a powerful tool. That said, whenever we do work, it is always in one system. It's in ClickUp. Now we will bend over backwards for our clients because we believe in sticking to their tools. So we've got clients who use Asana. We've got clients who use Monday. We use clients who use Slack and WhatsApp and all these different configurations. And we will bend over backwards to make sure that we are working in their system to deliver goods. And that's where, whether it be in consulting or in us actually fulfilling work, is we're going to support them sticking in their system. On the automation side, it's actually kind of ironic. A large amount of the automations we do are taking information from one silo or system into another system. So, for example, we need to take leads for a real estate agent and from their LMS system and put it into like their CRM or to their lead follow up or to their Google Sheet where they track all this stuff with their office manager. And that communication is a lot of our automation to say, or a lot of the work that we do in automation, because everyone wants the data somewhere simply, but we fail to maintain it, which is ultimately where things break down.
Well, so when you say automation, my brain immediately goes to AI bots doing fun things behind the scenes. And I suspect that's part of it. But when you talk about we built this automation that helps the apps essentially share info seamlessly, what does that actually mean for like the end user?
Yeah, and I'm regularly reminded that automation is not a thing that a lot of people think. So I think the best automation that most of us are at least familiar with to some degree is that automation we see on Instagram pretty frequently, where kids will take their parents' phone and they'll replace the word no with yes, dear, absolutely. So every time a parent says no, they give permission instead, or whatever funny thing that they've auto swapped. That's an automation. And in that automation, when the letters NO by themselves get put into the text field, the phone kicks out something else instead. When A happens, B occurs. That's an automation. We jokingly call it automagic, right? So it just
Mm,
happens automatically. Now, AI in today's world is pretty phenomenal because it allows us to do things with automation that we weren't able to do 8 years ago. I remember back in the day when I was first learning automation, it was like, oh man, I need to take this data and I need to process it in such a way to extract this information and then send it over here. But I couldn't send it over here, or I couldn't get it for some reason. The data structure wasn't consistent, or there's some development issue. AI has kind of resolved like 95% of those issues for us. It can kind of do anything for us. And that's where AI comes in. But yeah, a lot of this is really saying, when I add a row on my Google Sheets, or recently I built one for myself. This one is probably one of my favorites. I imagine it's going to be something we help a lot of business owners with. I have a distributor for one of our products. They sell one of our products alongside us, and they send me an email and it says action required, new lead from this company. Same exact subject line. It's a template. I think it even may be part of an automation. For some reason, it's an email. Not entirely sure why, but they have to send an email to one person, not two people, one person. As the owner of the company, I want to see that email. I don't really want to do anything with it. Like, I don't want to have to touch it. but I want to see it. So it is my company. So what I did was I built an automation that every time an email that is tagged in my Gmail, this tags, which create a filter, an automatic filter in Gmail, it automatically marks it as read. It automatically responds with the required information because it's based on template fields. Oh, we got balloons. And then it automatically forwards it to my sales team so that they can follow up with the lead and enters it into my system. There's not really an AI component in here. I've just built a singular when X happens, Y and Z happen because every time X happens, these things need to occur. I don't need to touch it, but that email exists in my inbox. I can
Hmm.
still see it pop up. I can still read it when it's convenient for me. And now the handoff happens seamlessly within 15 minutes because of a simple automation. And that's where, again, with these types of things, I can automate these little logistical concerns that were previously taking only 5 or 10 minutes. But if you read the productivity literature, then you know that's not just 5 or 10 minutes. That's 5 or 10 minutes, what at plus the 5 to 10 minutes to get back into everything you're trying to focus on next.
Yeah. Some of what you're explaining, I remember fighting with like if this then that calls and trying to zap things
Yeah.
that they never sent the right data in the right way.
Right.
And you were always so really kind of the next level then of implementing that into businesses. That's really
100%.
cool. So what you just shared a really practical application like in your business. But for the people that are coming to you on a regular basis, I know you're doing stuff in the medical field, the dental field. You and I talked about, I think it was a painter, even you had done some stuff
Mm.
with, or even somebody who was like scanning like commercial construction stuff and automations, those kind of things. What is kind of the scope of where this tech could go that people could be thinking, well, I have a product or a project that something like this could actually help manage for me.
You know, it's so tempting, and I do this with clients frequently. It's so tempting to do what we call the magic wand activity, right? Which is if I could wave a magic wand and X would go to Y, what would that look like, right? And that is an amazing activity. What I found, and I think this goes actually to the post that you mentioned earlier, is that frankly, the most impactful moments or things we can look into automating are actually the littlest things that we do every day. For example, we talked actually, so the post I did for anyone who haven't seen it, it was a screenshot of a content calendar from a tool that we use. And I love this tool, big fan of it. And one of the things that I realized is as an agency that does marketing, we are creating content for clients, hundreds of pieces of content every month and maybe thousands now. But I have to review a large amount of them because we work with experts and we need to make sure that it's top notch content. We never compromise in that. So right now, until we build someone up to this role, I have to be the final review for every single piece of content our company produces. It's a lot. And in that, when you're reviewing hundreds of pieces of content, it only takes a couple minutes to review everything. But then in any task manager software, you have to go in and you have to move it to the next status. And then you got to unassign yourself and reassign someone else. And then you got to leave a comment that does X, Y, and Z. And if like we have to email the client every time, well, now I got to write the email that goes with it sometimes and all these different things. And so one of the automations that literally has saved me probably, I don't know, 100 hours in the last 6 months was that I made sure that anytime I clicked the next status, it automatically unassigned me, automatically reassigned the next person in the workflow. And then it also removed me from watching that task because I don't want any more notifications about it. And so now I'm not getting as distracted. I don't have to click. It sounds so
Mm,
silly, but I save 10 to 15 seconds per post. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal until you start to look at the volume of content
hundreds.
we hundreds, yeah, hundreds. And I'm looking at when I sit down, I sometimes work at 1 or 200 posts in a sitting. So that's an hour easy every month that I'm saving, let alone probably more than that, probably an hour a week doing button clicks. And it's like, wow, like what if I asked the question instead of what magic wand, what if I said,
Mm,
if I was able to buy you back 2 hours a week, what would that do for your day, for your week? Now repeat that. Most of us have something we can do like that for 3, 4, 5 times. And that may not be even automation. Usually that's sometimes like a system process. It's just knowing the exact steps to accomplish because we're not trying to figure out what comes next.
So that's I'm thinking of this as the business owner and as the marketer because the business owner is looking at the bottom line, like how quickly can my team get through the required things that still have to happen.
Hmm.
The marketing team obviously needs the pieces to be moving. So there, in my mind, there's always been these two worlds. Like, we use the tools in the marketing side to make the things happen. But really, you're almost talking about it like a democratization of the ability to move tasks along and pass them through team members. And I love that idea, because when I think of AI, I think of automation. That's not what I think of.
Hmm.
That's not, I was reading, did you see the post this week from, is it Schumer? Is it, who's the big AI guy? He had essentially AI. Those of you who are using AI don't even have an idea of what's coming. Like, you just don't understand it. The guys developing it we're amazed at how quickly this is advancing. And essentially what I think you're articulating here, or how I'm seeing it, is that the reality is we keep seeing these tools as nice little help moments
Hmm.
rather than truly an extension of how do we become more effective at the day-to-day things, not just the big jobs.
Yeah, but AI is not going to solve your problems. I mean, there are AIs that solve problems. There are, I mean, we build AI receptionist. Okay, cool. Yeah, we don't got to answer phones anymore. That's there you go, time saved. But we build AI that responds to reviews. I mean, we build AIs and stuff. But for the majority of the skilled work that you do, that AI is probably not going to come for in the near future, or if it is, it's going to expedite your workflow. Like, there are so many things. So as an example, graphic design is one of the things that AI, there are ways to develop AI in such a way that it can help and assist with that. But in general, most skilled graphic design is not well done by AI. At least in my opinion, there are exceptions to that rule, as with any statement, but the vast majority, 80, 90%, is just isn't there. So as we were talking, this occurred to me. This just happened to us. We have an excellent graphic designer. I mean, this guy, just I adore working with him. He is sharp, fast, responsive, humble. He calls me captain, which that shouldn't matter to me, but gosh, it's so nice. Like, I just got my pirate cap on, and I'm good to go. And there's just, I don't know if you guys have a team member like that, but that's who he is. Amazing guy. And we spent way too much time going back and forth in our system about like this and that, and then he wouldn't do the thing I asked, and I was like, didn't you see the screenshot, and didn't you read this and whatever, and I was like, man, like, what are we going to do? And then I realized I need to pause, and I need to look at what's happening and figure out why this is happening. And I realized there's a communication breakdown, because there's a part of our software that we use that I was trying to use, my project manager was trying to use, and he had no idea. And all we had to do, not joking, this one thing, no automation included, all we had to do was do a Loom video, a screen recording, explaining how this worked, what he was expected to do, and how he was supposed to use it. Literally a 1 minute and 45-second screen recording with me narrating. It saved me the next day probably 45 minutes. And since then, it has saved me 20, 30 minutes every single time there's a revision on a project. Not on the project, on the revision of the project. Because I'm not worried about communicating nearly as much. I don't have to, what it is I can open up a PDF and I can actually comment on the PDF in the software and add that as a sub action item into the task and assign it to the graphic designer. That's a feature in my tool. And now I can assign it to him so that he can mark it complete when it's done. That's amazing. That solves
Yes.
89, 90%. There's no AI, there's no automation, that's just a process that it took me sitting down and stepping back for literally 5 minutes to think, why is this a problem? What needs to change? And when I looked at the problem, realized the problem is not just the outcome. That's the result of the problem. The problem is that the team member is not equipped with the knowledge and the expectations that I'm expecting. Fixing that problem, getting organized, using the tools well, fixed it almost literally overnight.
It's amazing to me. I started using Loom videos to fill gaps, like what you're like. I don't want to have to explain this 8 times. I'm going to
Right.
do your Loom video. When your team member finishes, pass it on.
Hmm.
One of the things that I have done is um, one of the offers that I have in terms of like, say, website maintenance is
Mhm.
essentially I'm going to be your phone a friend. Like I'm going to make sure that site stays live and it's got the safety protocols and all that stuff. But like you don't update stuff enough to be paying my team to do the content stuff.
Right.
I'm just going to create a process.
Yeah.
Well, I only did that because I used to sit and teach at a laptop in a coffee shop every client how to, and without fail, they were always like, I skipped a step. Okay, well, we're going to stop doing this. I don't want to ever do this again. But I think to the heart of that, I so appreciate that as the guy who's been the guy responsible for checking off the to do, it actually got finished. But I think the point there is something that so few businesses take the time to sit and do, and that's to go 30,000 foot. What is actually happening here? Is this a person issue? Is this a software issue? Is it an implementation issue? Like, where is the problem actually happening? And if it's truly just a communication issue, let's fix it. Like
Mhm.
that's easy. I was going back and forth with somebody about the idea of when chaos feels like it's filling your business
Mm.
and like how do you deal with chaos? And my my take was that there's always going to be some of it in the creative process. Like
Mhm.
that's some of what brings the genius
Yeah.
to your marketing, but it also is some of what has to be wrangled. And I think that approach, going, let's just take a moment here. That's an easy fix. I don't need to spend 3 weeks building a solution. I don't need to spend like so often we look for the long, hard answers to
Right.
things in our business, especially when it comes to marketing. So I am curious because you're building this kind of stuff for people, you're thinking about it this way, even with your own team. Are there areas where you feel like you look at the tech and you go, this is not a time and a place to use AI, to use automation, to like, I see this and there's something about the human touch at this moment that is required?
Yeah. So I actually have a rule in our organization. I love AI so much. I showed up to an event one time and they had changed my name badge to say Chad GPT. That is my reputation for AI. I love AI. Despite that, I do not allow my team to use AI or automate processes until we as a team have performed that process at least 5 to 10 times.
Mm,
Now, that's not true for established processes, but every process that we use has been done by a human. So when I started my agency, it was just me and one other guy. And we did it. And that agency was built on practices that I had learned and tested and done this philosophy with on my own. And when I onboarded those people, I had established systems that I knew worked. And this is
mm,
why this is so important because when their output started suffering, I knew they were skipping steps in my process because I had designed the process. So we were able to find and, shall we say, terminate issues within our organization quickly because we were able to see that people were not following our process or listening to instructions. And so, really, what it comes down to, and because what you're talking about is, I think, it's part of the problem of being an operations guy. It's also part
mhm,
of the problem of being a creative. Is we get hit with some ad, and it's like we're gonna do everything for you. We'll build everything, and it's like great. This will fix all of my problems, and it won't, because as Taylor Swift likes to say, it's I'm the problem. It's me. Like you're part of the problem. And so when we look at this, I actually have developed, just not developed, I've adopted a philosophy. And this hit me really square in the face last year with sales. We brought on a salesperson, and we bought a CRM and I started having populate the CRM. And I was so excited. It was a different system. And then I was like, I'm not going to use the CRM. So I started having him use a Google Sheet, and the Google Sheet was working. And then I realized that our task management software is just like a high powered Google Sheet that allows me to send emails from the actual software versus like doing extra work. And I realized had I not applied the Occam razor solution, the
mhm,
simplest solution first, I would not have been able to adopt the more advanced solution. And that's where, frankly, every time I'm tempted, which is frequently, to actually do something complex, I think of Occam's razor, which you might know this as the simplest solution is often the best, right?
Hmm.
Usually referred to like in detective shows, the simplest answer is usually the best answer, the right answer. It's the same principle applied to productivity and workforce management. For our team, we don't automate things. We don't use AI for sometimes AI sometimes is the simplest solution, but we don't use that until we've considered what simple things we can do to reach the outcome that we want. We were able to start with an Excel sheet, a Google sheet, import that into our task management software and build out a CRM arm of it. And it's not complicated. It's very simple, but it works. And now my sales guy is in the same system I live in every single day. And that's where it's like the same thing here. If
Mm.
you're looking at doing something complex, try the simplest version of it first and then build complexity as you want because we think that we need things and we don't. I thought I want X, Y, and Z automation. I thought I want X, Y, or Z AI thing. I thought that if this could happen, then it would be amazing. And the reality is, it's just distracting. It's just noise. It doesn't fit my actual life. It was a cool idea that didn't work. So build the simple version, use it for a while. And then, like me in that approval workflow, where I found out that, man, this is stupid. Why am I clicking these three buttons every single time? But what was the solution to that? Well, I didn't realize the simple problem until I did it a couple times. And then I just said, I can automate these three small steps. That automation took me 1 minute and 30 seconds to build, and I put it on LinkedIn a couple months ago. That's how simple it can be. But again, we talked about the impact of those simple little pieces.
Hmm.
Get 2 hours of your week back. What would that mean to you? That's what we're talking about. So think Occam's razor. Think instead of going hardcore down the long development pathway, let's start small. And frankly, it's a bad business move on my part, but when people come to me about AI projects and automation projects, I have to pause because I tell them, like, guys, this is amazing. You're not going to use it. Let's build the thing that's going to make a difference today. And then if you use this and we want to, we can develop it into something more advanced.
I love that. I love it because first of all, it's an integrity move on your side, but it, second of all, says to me, like I've got a couple processes in my own business right now that I keep doing. And every time I do them, I've tweaked it just a little because I've not liked the outcome or something. I felt like I shouldn't have had to do that step three times. Like there's still, and there's a part of me that really wants to build some sort of system around it, some sort of like, I'm going to write an SOP, I'm going to do, and I keep realizing I've not figured out a system that I feel like is efficient enough that it makes sense to document and hand off to someone else yet.
Hmm.
And I think that so often we want it off our desk. So we just pass it on in whatever state. And sometimes I think it does take a team member to go, this could have been faster. Like
Hmm.
something's missing here. Have you and I talked about our family's business here in town?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I've talked about it on the podcast, but our family essentially has a formal wear store. And it is one of those businesses that part of what is difficult for me in the business is so much of it is based off of repetitive system. Like these 12 steps happen, these three next things happen with a customer, then this is the fulfillment, this is the, like, it's all systems. And we discovered really fast, we're like, we've got to shorten up this runway. Like it's killing us. Well, all of a sudden we went, oh, things aren't working right. Something got missed. There was something in one of those steps
Hmm.
that changed the outcome 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And it took us going back and going, we got to now find that step. Maybe there's a reason that the system has been that way for the last 20 years, you know? And I think so many businesses don't think of that when they're thinking of how do I be more productive? How do I train a team member to be faster? How do I pass this sucker off? There's the whole thing of sometimes, pass it off to someone smarter you or who will figure it out, let them do it your way a few times. But having the guardrails there is a pretty solid approach. I really like.
Yeah, and there is wisdom in that. I mean, there's a lot of systems that you can absolutely delegate to someone who's more gifted to you in another area. But I recommend still being involved. We had a team member come to me, someone who was really one of the most expensive things that I do is I build content calendars for our clients. And so what we do is, I sit down for a couple hours and I'm planning out the post and what we call source material and all these different things and emails. And it just takes a long time because it's a very valuable thing to do. So I started training a team member how to do it. And they said, "Oh, and we're better than me at this, but they thought they were." And they said, "Oh, I can do it in 30 minutes with AI." And I said, "Yeah, but then I'm going to spend 2.5 hours fixing it because it's not good." And we had to work through the process and
Mm.
the system and all those different aspects because of that piece. So if you're not involved and you assume that that person's going to get what you expect, like that's where we have a misalignment. And so it's vital that we do that. Now, to your end, the other thing I'd like to say is if you take a process that you're not absolutely clear on doing, and or you have changes you want to make, and then you
Mhm.
automate that, it is about 5 to 10 times longer to go fix an automation than it is to just do it differently next time and document it. And that's where, again, doing it repeatedly, that changing the status after the 10th or 20th time of clicking all those buttons, I realized this is an automation. Again, not that you can't be proactive in that. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying that those little things, like sometimes it's okay to slow down, work through it, and see the things that can be automated or the repetitive things that you don't need to do. Like that email I said earlier.
Mhm.
I don't need to respond. I didn't even have to do that one. Honestly, that one I didn't do this, but it was because it was very much when we send you this email, we want you to respond with this. Well, you already know this. Do I need to respond? Unfortunately, yes. I was like, okay. So we do it. It's fine. It's not a problem. But it's something that was clearly established before. There wasn't a big surprise with it. But if you're not sure and you want something to be different, well, then we just got to map it out. You got to think about it. So my big thing, if for anyone listening, is just make sure that when you're considering AI, when you're considering automation, make sure to preserve the most important aspects of the outcome and don't compromise in those things. In the AI economy, we're seeing an abundance of what we call AI slop. People who compromise in quality for speed and efficiency. And that's going to compromise your brand. It's going to compromise your perceived expertise. And so we cannot do that. We have to protect the value and the authenticity and the expertise that we know and have. And AI is a tool, automation is a tool, softwares are a tool. But I'm I probably invested $10,000 last year in software that we will not use because they do not support our goals. Because I said, well, too bad. And now I give them
Mm.
away to clients if I've got extra licenses. But you have to find that simple solution, start to use it every day, and then figure out what you really need, not just what you want. And then if you're in a position to get what you want, well, then you can do that too. Start small, get back your time, grow your business, and then go from there.
So for the business owner who's listening to us going, okay, that sounds like there's some cool places I could think about. Are there when you do a one of your kind of discovery initial, even your free short contact best meetings, are there some places where you go, here's where you might be searching for ways you could actually implement these kind of tools like really fast, or there's some like I mean, obviously, you've talked a little about email, you've talked a little about systems, backends kind of stuff, but, like, for that person who's thinking, I'm sure that I could do this in my business. I don't even know where I would start. I don't even know if I called Chad, what to ask him for, because I don't know where in my business this would be beneficial. Are there, like, some quick, areas where you go, "Here's places that often we can help?"
Yeah. First question is, where do you keep track of tasks? I work with a lot of established small businesses, guys who've been in business for 10, 20 years, and they carry around a notebook like this.
Mhm.
And this is where they keep their tasks. And I've done this. I have this literally right here so I can write things on it. I write things on this so that I can throw it away. I don't, this is for projects or things like that that I just needed to write down so I can put it somewhere else. So the first thing that I look at and say, if you don't have a place to store tasks or information, then pick one. I like ClickUp. I think it's great. You can get an account for free and then you can create a single list that you can just drop stuff into. It's wonderful for that purpose alone. It's great. So find a place to put your stuff, and so that you know where to go look for it. And it's not in your handwriting on a piece of paper that can be faded, water can fall on, your dog can eat, anything like that. That's the most important thing. The second thing is pick a place. Like if I've heard for years that people just bash on emails, like email's not your task manager, unless it is, in my opinion. If it is and it works for you, then just do it. But if your system is email, you should not be writing yourself a note for a sticky note. You should send yourself an email to check tomorrow. And then you should hit remind me in 5 days on Google. Like pick a place. It doesn't have to be ClickUp. It doesn't have to be email. If you're going to do sticky notes, that's an awful idea. I'm sorry. I'm trying to warn you of years of pain that Ryan and I have experienced, but stick with it. Get a whiteboard and put that crap on there and label it every day of the week. That's what you got to do. Do it. That's fine. But make it your spot. That's the number one. Number two is this is we haven't talked about this at all. This entire call. Number two is you probably need help.
Mhm.
You probably are very resistant to help. In my experience, it's a lot of people who don't want it. And the best help, believe it or not, is probably an international virtual assistant. Was resistant to this for many years. I got my first virtual assistant probably 4 years ago, and he has become a lifelong friend. He was the first person I hired at my new business. He has changed everything for how we live our lives. And I get to pay him a meaningful wage that he's thrilled about. And we get to build this thing together. And he started off literally at $4 an hour, 5 hours a week. And he was able to help me with data entry. And it just changed everything about that. So give it a shot. Try out some online help. And if you're not sure to start, well, then you can ask other people for help. I can talk to you about what we do and how we do it. It's not a service we provide, but I'm happy to show you what we've done. And then number three is just get an outside perspective on what you're doing. And I mean, whether if you're not clear on your marketing and your message, we'll talk to Ryan. Ryan will get you pointed in the right direction. If you want help with your systems or you don't want to do marketing, then after you talk to Ryan, you can come talk to us. And we'll help take your message and get it in front of the right people that's there. But you don't have to do everything yourself. In fact, you're probably spinning your wheels
Hmm.
trying to do something that's not in what Michael Hyatt and Free to Focus calls your drudgery zone. We are uniquely gifted individuals, and it's okay to get someone else's perspective on that and figure out what the next thing that you need to do that will free up your time. To do that though, before you jump on a call, you should have a goal. Like, what do you want? Where are you today and where do you want to go? And if you don't know what's in the way, you can ask a guy like me or Ryan, but just have some kind of goal in mind that we can work towards, because that's going to ultimately kind of be your North Star. So I don't know if that made sense, but I hope that all fit together with what we've been talking.
Yeah, no, very much so. In fact, you're really articulating how do I fill the gap between where I'm at and where I want to be, and oftentimes it takes help.
Hmm.
At least someone who knows the road enough to ask the right questions, even if you may do some of the implementation yourself, or that. So, Chad, I so appreciate this conversation. Going in, I wasn't sure what direction we were going to go because I know there's a number of things you and I could talk about, and I would love to maybe have you back and actually talk about some of those other pieces. But for those who are listening, if they're interested and would like to reach out to you, how could they find you?
Yeah, best place is LinkedIn for me. Take a look on there. We are kind of in a lot of places, but message me on LinkedIn. I think there's a link to schedule a call
There is.
in my LinkedIn bio or something. So connect with me there. We're happy to take a look at what's going on and make a recommendation. And we just love help folks and make businesses help them do good work to the people that they're trying to reach.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Chad, thank you so much for being a part today.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. This is a great project you're working on. Next time we'll have to get some scotch, but yeah, it's a good time.